The Republic versus Gerald Hayato and Arnold Kibet. The two accused persons have been charged on counts of corruption and abuse of office contrary to the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, arising from the illegal acquisition of maize and subsequent illegal exportation of National Cereals and Produce Board maize.
Opening statement. Or are you revoking that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, you have no opening statement.
No, I meant yes. I have an opening statement.
Am I supposed to read your mind, prosecutor, or have you suddenly become mute?
Your Honor, I was waiting for your permission to begin.
Well, if you have the whole day, I don't.
Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Arnold Kibet and Gerald Hayato opened a mailing company, Primo Mailers, a mailing company that existed only on paper. Primo Mailers was dubiously allocated 8,000 bags of maize from the National Cereal and Produce Board for milling and supplying flour at subsidized rates to the citizens of this country to avert the famine crisis. This maize, meant for starving Kenyans, was sold in Sudan for profit, a huge profit at the expense of my fellow citizens who are dying of hunger. Gerald Hayato, his truck was found loaded with maize cargo in the southern Sudanese border. We have testimonies and photographic evidence to prove that. These two were actually briefcase mailers. They are guilty of illegally exporting maize, making colossal profits at the expense of dying and starving Kenyans. For their callous and corrupt practices that endangered the very bedrock of this country, they should be punished.
Your Honor, the maize scam has been in the spotlight since last year, December. And the departments that have been implicated in the government include the Ministry of Agriculture, where the Permanent Secretary was a signatory to the Strategic Grain Reserve Quota allocation. The Ministry of Special Programs, where the PS was a signatory to the Strategic Grain Reserve Allocation Quota. And also the Ministry of Finance, the Treasury Department, where also the Permanent Secretary was a signatory to the SGR quota allocation, and the Office of the Prime Minister, where also the PS was a signatory to the SGR quota allocation. 4 permanent secretaries whose signatory endorsed the sale and who authorized the release and the sale of this maize to the millers. Now, my clients, Gerald Hayato and Arnold Kibet, are businessmen. They just went on to the National Cereals Produce Board and bought maize and transacted the same. I mean, they thought this was a legitimate business, but not until they got arrested. If we are to find out those who are culpable in this maize scam, we will find the guilty ones at the top of this food chain. So why don't we start from the top? Why don't we start from the genesis? I mean, it's like a game of chess. Primo millers are mere pawns in this game. The king, the queen, the bishop, and the knight are still very much in the game. My clients here are just but sacrificial lambs in this game.
Elsie. Elsie?
Goodness, how long have you been standing there? I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
It's okay. I understand. You've been under a lot of pressure lately.
Is it ever going to end?
Yes, it will. Mrs. Nakale just phoned. They're on their way here. How are you feeling?
Obviously not good.
They should be here in the next 15 minutes.
I'll be ready.
Sally Humo, you are a reporter for the Daily Times.
Yes.
And you are investigating the maize scandal that hit our country end of last year.
Yes, I did the first expose on the 80,000 bags of maize valued at 190 million Kenyan shillings being allocated to suspect companies by the Strategic Grain Reserve. The maize that was supposed to curb starvation in our country was sold out to dubious millers. Unfortunately, during the entire investigation, we were unable to get solid evidence to point a finger at any person.
But you kept the investigation open?
Yes, I did. Though it was on the law, I still had my eye on the story and my ear on the ground. I had placed informers in strategic places to be on the lookout for the NCPB maize.
Did you get a breakthrough?
Yes. I got a tip from one of my informers, whose identity I'll keep anonymous for their safety, that a truck containing 2,450 bags of maize was on its way to southern Sudan. I was given the exact location and the time it was last seen. I immediately called in my backup team and followed the truck.
Did you have any luck in catching up with this truck?
Yes, we did. It was in fact involved in an accident and overturned. By the time we got to the accident scene, the local residents were all over it looting the maize. Each bag was clearly labeled NCPB. So the first thing we did was to collect photographic evidence as my colleague called the police.
What happened next?
Since I was taking photos of the maize, curiosity took the better of them, and they realized the maize they were looting was the same maize meant to be feeding starving Kenyans. The crowd got angry. A riot immediately ensued. The driver was attacked from all angles by the mob. Lucky for him, the police arrived a few minutes after the beatings had begun. So the police controlled the bloodthirsty mob, arrested the driver, and secured the remainder of the maize.
Are these the photos you took of the maize bags and the truck?
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'd like to submit these photos as evidence.
You may continue.
Were you able, Sally, to gather any other information about the people behind this truck that was carrying the maize?
My efforts were cut short when the police took over the investigation, so I was unable to get all the information. However, I managed to trace the ownership of the truck to a Nairobi businessman, Gerald Hayato. I'm sorry I'm not of much help there.
No. You have done more than enough. Thank you. Thank you for your service to our country. Nothing further.
Anything for you, Mr. Mwako?
No thanks.
Elsie? Elsie, can I get you anything to drink?
I think she's okay. So the last time we met, we never got to discuss these matters.
Paul?
He couldn't get away, but whatever we agree here is going to be agreeable with him too.
Are you sure? He's a very difficult man.
I have his assurance. Have no fear.
Miss Sally Humo, where does your informer reside? The informer who gave you the information that there was a truck with maize on transit to Sudan.
As I mentioned earlier, I protect my sources and cannot deliberately give out any information on their whereabouts.
I'm not asking about their whereabouts. I'm asking if he or she resides in Nairobi or along the route to Sudan.
He or she is based in Nairobi.
And he or she is the one who gave you specific information about the truck headed to southern Sudan?
Yes.
You know, there are several trucks that normally head to Sudan, but why specifically this truck?
Because it had been observed loading suspect cargo.
And who determines that that cargo is a suspect?
My source.
Who is not here? Who is not here to corroborate your story? You published your story on 10th of December last year, and you caused quite a stir. You even implicated several permanent secretaries and several members of parliament. And of course, the story gathered news everywhere, and all the media houses had taken it up.
It was a credible story.
Oh. Okay. So, is it true that this particular story afforded you a promotion?
I was up for promotion.
Really? Sally, I put it to you that yes, you are up for promotion, but your work was no longer in favor with your employer, and you needed to stay at the top of the game. So you found a way of working in cohorts with this anonymous informer so that you could actually frame my clients, Arnold Glibert and Gerald Hayato.
That is ridiculous.
You are made aware of the maize in transit by a person or a group that was responsible for corruptly acquiring this maize from the strategic grain reserve so that you can exclude their names from any more investigative stories.
That is not true. My source was credible and so was my story. There was nothing underhand about it.
So how do you explain the 750,000 shillings that was deposited into your account 4 days prior to the arrest of my clients and 2 days prior to the discovery of a truck with the NCPB maize headed to Sudan? Please, I need an answer to that question.
Your Honor, do I have to answer that?
Yes, you do.
I got the money from a cooperative.
I see. You know, I've heard this phrase before, dirty cop. But I'm just wondering, is the word dirty applicable to a reporter who accepts bribes to cover up crimes committed by the rich and famous? Dirty reporter.
Objection, Your Honor. This is harassment.
Mr. Kairu, where are you going with these questions?
Your Honor, I have it in strong authority that this witness here has been compromised.
That is a lie, Your Honor.
Wait for the question, Miss Humo.
Much obliged, Your Honor. The loan that you claim you got from the cooperative, is the money that you indeed received and you got paid for so that you can frame my clients?
That is absolutely false.
If it was a loan from the cooperative, then why was it disbursed to you in cash installments? Please, can I get an answer to that question?
Because it was an arrangement I had made with my cooperative society.
Please do not take this court for a fool.
Asked and answered. That derogatory remark was totally unnecessary.
My lord, there is not, in my knowledge, any cooperative that disburses loans to its members in cash.
She made an arrangement with them.
What arrangement? It's not even the norm. So all her assertions are frankly not true, Your Honor.
Ask the next question, Mr. Kairu.
No further questions.
Well, you may be seated.
I received a call from Saleh Humo about a truck that had overturned and was transporting National Cereals and Produce Board maize to southern Sudan for sale. Immediately, my team and I headed to the scene for investigations.
What did you find on the scene?
There was an angry mob that were attacking the driver and another that was looting the maize. At least we had to fire in the air to disperse the mob. At least we managed to save the driver's life. Now, there on the ground and in the truck were bags of maize labeled NCPB.
How many bags of maize did you salvage?
2,100 bags of maize.
And how many bags were at the scene before the looting began?
It's estimated at 2,450.
2,450 bags of maize? 2,450 bags of maize exported to a foreign country while its citizens died of hunger. You arrested the driver, of course.
Yes, we did. He further assisted us by providing relevant and important information as to the source of the maize and the directors of the company he worked for, that is Primo Millers. This further led to the arrest of Derald Hayato and Arnold Glibert, who were the directors of the company and the supposed owners of the maize for sale. Nonetheless, they were the directors of Primo Millers.
Did you find out who the buyers of this 2,450 bags was?
No. The driver was instructed to deliver the maize to a certain warehouse belonging to an individual named Samir Hassan. Investigation into this individual eventually ended in a cold trial.
So you have no idea who Arnold Glibert and Derald Hayato were working with in Sudan? This Samir Hassan?
No. There's no record of such a man in Sudan, and we had no other leads.
Did you find out how Primo Millers got their name into the Strategic Grain Reserves list, which was authorized by 4 permanent secretaries?
No, we didn't. We came across a brick wall in our investigations.
Thank you. Your witness.
Do you have a department that is specifically trained to investigate white-collar crime?
We investigate all fraud and corruption cases without exception.
Then how did you come to the conclusion that my clients, Arnold Glibert and Derald Hayato, illegally acquired maize from NCPB and were also involved with the prohibited exportation of maize?
The driver, of course, he led us to the 2 gentlemen.
Do you know if the driver knew how the maize was allocated to them?
Not really.
Is that a no or is that a yes?
No.
So, the two, my clients, were arrested for a crime and charged, a crime so severe, all based on a testimony from a driver, a testimony that does not hold any water at all.
We had reason to believe that the two, being the directors of the company, were fully aware and approved the exportation of the 2,450 bags.
Okay. The strategic grain reserves approved and allocated more than 80,000 bags of maize to briefcase millers. Right? If more than, and these millers, by the way, the briefcase millers, have not been arrested up to this date. If more than 80,000 bags of maize was allocated to non-existing millers, should it be obvious that the permanent secretary, all of them, the four of them, should be arrested the same way that the directors of Primo Millers were arrested just because maize was found in their truck?
Again, this is...
Of course, Kenya. I forgot. You do not have solid evidence to place on my clients whatsoever. And yet, they were arrested. This is very interesting, I must say.
What tricks does he have up his sleeve this time?
They're not tricks, Elsie.
You don't know him the way I do.
People change.
Not your client.
Anyway, to the main point. Paul has a proposal.
Didn't I tell you?
What is this proposal?
Well, Paul has decided to drop the custody suit.
What?
My names are Tom Kwatu. I'm the spokesman, National Cereals and Produce Board.
Thank you. Please describe to this court how the procedures involved before allocating maize to the millers.
It's quite basic. A milling company has to apply via a tender process to be allocated a quota of the maize, of the milling of the maize. The milling capacity had to be indicated. After the paperwork was checked and certified, they were allocated the maize for milling as per their milling capacity.
Wasn't there a particular milling rate that you were looking at?
We are looking at a milling rate of about 100 bags per hour. The subsidized maize flour was to be distributed within the marketplace within a window frame of 1 month.
80,000 bags of maize are unaccounted for. How did that happen?
It's two ways. One we know of is the formation of non-existent milling companies. After maize was allocated to these companies, it was either exported, resold for a higher price, and these people made a killing. The second one, the overestimating of small-scale millers for them to qualify for the allocation of the milling. For instance, if a company has a milling capacity of 10 bags per hour of maize, they overestimated their capacity to 98 or 103 for them to qualify for the allocation, which after they were allocated as per their milling capacity, they sold the excess to third parties.
Wasn't there a vetting system before you awarded, you allocated tenders to these bids from the SGR?
Yes. The tendering committee was supposed to investigate the companies.
How did Primo Millers get their name on the list of allocation?
I don't know.
You're sure about that?
I could make a guess.
Please do.
They had a contact within the tendering committee. Arnold Kibert's wife, to my understanding, is the chairperson to the tendering committee.
So, his wife, being the chair, would have manipulated his company to get to the list.
It's a possibility.
Thank you.
Are you sure?
Those were his instructions.
Well, that was a very good decision on his part. Saves us a lot of money and a messy custody battle.
I don't believe you would do that.
Well, Mrs. Nakale must have knocked some sense into him.
On the contrary, Paul reached this decision by himself after I outlined a few pros and cons.
I can't believe this.
Well, all is good. That ends well.
I couldn't have put it better myself, Mr. Mwako.
I do not know what to say.
I just hope you're going to be reasonable and not make it difficult for him to have access to his son.
No. Just ask him to give me a call and we'll discuss all that.
This is great.
Mr. Tom Kwato, tens of thousands of bags of maize disappeared without a trace from the National Cereals Produce Board. Where was that so?
We don't know how the maize left our premises. We don't know who collected the maize, and we don't know who authorized the release of the maize.
What sort of incompetence is this? I mean, this is just so amazing. Anyway, but you can say for certain that 80,000 bags of maize were approved and allocated to briefcase millers.
Yes, we carried out an investigation and were able to confirm that 80,000 bags of maize were allocated to briefcase millers.
And you could only trace 80,000 bags.
The investigation is still ongoing.
So would you, for certain, say that the 2,450 bags that were found on transit to southern Sudan were part of the 80,000 that were allocated to the briefcase millers? Or was it from the 920,000 bags that you cannot still account for?
No, I wouldn't.
So it is possible to say that Arnold and Gerald bought their maize from the 922,000 missing bags.
Yes, it is.
So it's also possible to say that they legitimately bought the maize from a middleman who got it from the 920,000 lot.
No, I wouldn't.
Why?
Because as per the allocation list signed by the 4 PSs, they were allocated 4,000 bags for milling in 10 days.
Is there any record that Primo Millers actually paid for the 4,000 bags of maize?
No, but their names were on the...
Is there any record to prove that Primo Millers actually collected the maize from NCPB?
No.
Then what makes you so sure that they did not buy this maize from a third party?
They lied about their milling capacity and they were allocated.
Is that true? Did your investigative team confirm that?
Yes, they did.
But they just said and they proved that they did not find any maize collected. I mean, for all we know, it could be anyone from NCPB or SGR who is trying to frame my clients. There's no record of any transaction having taken place except for the tender application, which up to now we cannot be absolute certain that it's my clients who actually placed that application.
Yes, they placed it. How else did the list get on the SGR list?
You tell me. You're the expert here. Huh? Unfortunately, you cannot. You do not even know how the 900,000 bags of maize disappeared without a trace from NCPB. All you know is the 80,000 that was approved and allocated to the briefcase millers without a proper investigation being conducted. You do not even have the faintest idea of how the maize was collected from the stores. You do not even have an idea of how the maize was discovered on the border of southern Sudan. Leave alone it passing through the gates of a well-protected premises. Mr. Kwatu, you can place the application with the rest of the list that covers up for the tens of thousands of maize bags that is missing.
Tom Kwatu, you are excused. Prosecution, any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Well, the court takes a 20 minutes recess.
All rise.
This is going much better than I thought. I'm actually surprised myself.
Oh my goodness. It calls for a celebration. Hand me over that whiskey. Sounds of a victory.
I'll let you know when I have a chat with Paul and you can prepare the document for both of us to sign.
Well, basically the document is ready, but I'll await further instructions from Paul after you've had your conversation.
Well, it was nice doing business with you. Wish it was always this amicable. But you don't trust me.
Nature of business, Mr. Mwako.
Thank you so much.
No problem, Elsie.
Mr. Hayato, for how long have you been in the transport business?
For the time I've been in business, 15 years plus and counting.
And for how long have you been transporting products to Sudan?
3 years. I also transport merchandise from Sudan to Kenya.
This truck that was found on the border of southern Sudan, was it yours?
Yes, it's part of our fleet, yes.
What about the maize from NCPB that was found inside the truck?
One of our trucks was hired by a client of mine who normally operates in southern Sudan. I sent the truck to his location for loading. From there it left for Sudan.
Okay, so you hire out your trucks?
Yes. But what usually a client transports is not of my concern, provided they are not drugs or weapons. In this case, the client was John Dalama. I've been doing business with him for the last, since I started my operations in Sudan. Actually, I knew he was transporting grains, but I didn't know it was maize from the cereal board.
So you had no idea that what it was carrying was the NCPB maize?
Absolutely not. I was surprised actually when the police raided my office and arrested me for being a briefcase miller. I was questioned how I and my friend Arnold were allocated 4,000 bags of maize. I had not applied for any allocation, neither Maya Miller.
So then how do you explain how the company name appeared on that list? How did your name come up on that list?
I have no idea.
Thank you.
You say you did not incorporate a company with Arnold Glibert, your ally, dubbed Primo Millers.
No, I'm a transporter, I'm not a miller.
You also say that you do not know how your application for maize allocation ended up on the list of Strategic Grain Reserve Tender Board.
I wish I knew.
Please, sign on that too.
Pardon?
I just want a specimen of your signature on that piece of paper.
On a blank piece of paper?
Just do what I say, Mr. Hayato.
Sign on the paper, Mr. Hayato.
That wasn't very hard now, was it? The signature on the memo and article of association of Primo Mailers, a company incorporated in October last year, and that on this piece of paper are a match. Looking at the application sent to the Strategic Grain Reserve, they're similar. Exact.
Someone must have forged it.
If we were to have all the signatures examined carefully by a specialist, are you sure it will not be confirmed that they belong to one and the same person who is you?
Yes.
Are you daring me, Mr. Hayato? I can ask this court for a recess so that the signatures can be examined by a specialist. Let's start afresh. How did a company incorporated by you and Arnold Glibert end up on the list of Strategic Grain Reserve and got an allocation of 4,000 bags of maize? Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess of 2 days so that we can have the sample of this signature and the one on the documents authenticated by a handwriting specialist.
Mr. Hayato, do you want that, or will you save us the trouble and answer the question? Well, motion granted. We reconvene.
I'll answer to that, Your Honor.
What did you say?
I'll tell the truth, Your Honor.
Your Honor, could I just have a moment with my client, please? Your Honor, please, can I have a moment with my client?
Your Honor, the witness is ready to tell the truth and spare this court wasting time.
I kindly ask this court to give it
Joe
time.
Carrier,
It's not.
settle down.
I'd like to have
settle
some
down.
time with my client, Your
Order!
Honor.
Order
I'd
in
like
my
to have
court.
some
Order! Order! Order in my court.
My friend Arnold Glibert, whose wife is the chair to the tendering committee of NCPB, was the mastermind behind our little scam. He told me the PS to the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock had approached him with a plan of how to make a quick buck. And actually, the plan was simple. We were to register a milling company, apply for the tender, of which he would ensure that the tender was approved and the maize allocated to the company. In exchange, the PS was to get 60% of the allocation, while he got the remaining 40%. In total, we got an allocation of 40,500 bags of maize. And as per the agreement, we collected our 40%. Actually, that is a lot of money. It runs into millions. We collected the maize using fake documents so as not to be traced.
So you were the one who collected the maize?
Yes, using our trucks.
All the 40,500 bags?
Yes.
You made obscene profits. And the PS had his cut, huh? Even made more.
Yes, all the four of us, the four signatories, had a cut in the deal.
Do you have evidence of this incrimination to the permanent secretaries?
If I did, what will happen to me and my family?
Just answer my question.
Well, I'd like an answer to mine.
Mr. Hayato, if you have any evidence pertaining to these allegations, then another case in regards to the permanent secretaries mentioned will be opened. However, you will still be charged in this court, regardless of the outcome. Now, do you or do you not have any evidence in support of your allegations?
No, I don't.
Are you sure?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, in light of this testimony and confession, I'd like to request a quick ruling.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Very well. I find the defendants Arnold Glibert and Gerald Hayato guilty as charged on all counts of corruption and abuse of office. I hereby order that each of you pays a fine of 1 million shillings or face a jail term for 5 years. Pursuant to Section 48 of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, I order that each of you is liable to an additional mandatory fine of 7,875,000, which is double the amount of the 4,500 bags of maize. I have no doubts whatsoever that as a result of your corrupt conduct, you have received a quantifiable benefit, and this serves as a lesson to you and to the rest of you who are involved in such corrupt activities. Court is adjourned. All rise.
Just one minute. Gerald, tell me you got the evidence of the deal that you cut with the PS of Agriculture.
If I do, can it be of help?
Yes, of course it will be of help. It will help reduce your sentence if you cooperate with the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission.
What of my safety and that of my family? And what about...
I'll cut out a deal for the both of you, okay?
Yes, I do.
Perfect. Do not show it or tell it to anyone. I'll get back to you as soon as, understand?
Yes.
Arnold, don't worry. It's not over yet.
And I thought I was a coward.